A large neon open sign hangs on Bella's double doors. Its 2 windows are covered with posters of smiling women modeling hair weaves and hairsprays. Lissa Rhonda Spence works there when the manager needs her, often on Fridays and Saturdays. She also works at the Quick Stop next door, where she's a cashier. That's where she is on the night of October 7th, 2009, on a 4-hour shift. She works hard, holding both jobs to support her family from afar, especially her 17-year-old daughter and 13-year-old son. She hopes to save enough money to someday move them from Trinidad to Florida. She dreams of the 3 of them living together in America. On that Wednesday night, she takes a break from her shift at the Quick Stop to call her daughter in Trinidad, 1,600 miles away. Serlene is just a few days races about where Lissa could be.
I said, that's strange. And anyhow, I think I fell asleep because I was wiped out. And the Sunday morning I got up and I called Trinidad again. I said, did you just tell me this? And she said, yes. And then I said, okay, I'm coming off the phone. And then I called. Of course, I didn't know. I don't know anything about Florida.
Avril decides to call the police.
So I just called the area that I thought she was in. So anyhow, I was bounced around to like 2 or 3 police precincts, and then I finally got to the right spot.
She tries several different numbers before she reaches an officer, and it's a lucky break. Avril explains the situation, another missing person to any other cop, but not to the officer on the other end of the line. This officer is a regular customer at the Quick Stop. He knows Lissa.
It was just amazing because I got there and I spoke to an officer, and he says, I'm describing, I tell her name, and I say where I think she lives, and then he says, oh, I know her. I said, are you kidding me? And he said, yes, I go into that store all the time. I know her. I know exactly who you're talking about.
The Quick Stop is popular with other police officers, too. So when they hear about Lissa's disappearance, they start an investigation. Lissa Spence is officially a missing person. Officer Mark D'Angelo has been on the force for 3 years. He's one of the Quick Stop regulars. The store was in his assigned patrol area, so he stopped by often enough that he knows all the employees there. He stopped in as usual on the Saturday after Lissa had gone missing. The cashier that night told him that Lissa hadn't been seen in days and that everybody in the store was worried about her. More officers got involved, and over the next few days, 5 of them were asking around and checking on the places where Lissa could have been. Mark St. Fort was another of them. He's 36 and had been with the Miramar police for 7 years. On a Thursday night, several days after Lissa was last seen, he took an audio recorder to the strip mall where Lissa worked. The Quick Stop and Bella Beauty Supply are owned by the same family, and the manager is a man named Mohammed Awad. He's Lissa's boss. Officer St. Fort interviewed Mohammed just after midnight.
Okay, in reference to your employee, Lissa, when was the last time you saw her?
Actually, she is not employee.
She's not an official employee.
Yeah.
But she's here all the time.
She help us. Yeah. What we need her like for hours.
Okay. How many times a week does she help you out?
It depends on my situation here.
Okay.
Like the last day she worked here, she come around. She start 6 until 10.
Okay, 4 hours.
Yeah, 4 hours.
Okay.
Mohammed tells Officer St. Fort that it's unlike Lissa to not show up at work without calling him first.
Okay, so it's definitely suspicious that no one has heard from her or seen her.
No.
She doesn't have any other family down here that you know of? Here in Florida?
Here in Florida, no. And I'm ready for any help.
But before the interview was over, Mohammed gives Officer St. Fort some odd information and a possible trail to follow. A friend who's often in the Quick Stop told Mohammed that he got a text from Lissa's phone the day after she failed to show up for work. His name is Richard Moore. He was a regular at the store and met Lissa at least a year earlier there. The 63-year-old became friends with her, almost a fatherly figure. This is Officer St. Fort's recording of his interview with Richard about Lissa's disappearance and her text.
When was the last time you physically seen her?
I seen her Wednesday. I stayed with him because I stayed with the girls and helped them. The guy owns the store is a friend of mine. So when the girl was there late, I stayed with them, you know. And I stayed with her till, it was like 7:35 on Wednesday. I said, well, Lisa, I'm going to go because the other guy come in. I said, I'm going to go home and get some rest. I give her a big old hug. She said, I'll see you tomorrow. So the next day, Muhammad or somebody said, did Lisa call? I said, no. She said, we didn't show up for work. I said, well, that's strange because she was in a good mood, you know, and everything, you know. So I called. I said, Lisa, I'm worried about you. Give me a call. Now, I think that was about 4 o'clock, I believe. I'm not real sure on the time. So nothing. Then about 5 o'clock or 5:30, a text message come in. I got 2.
The message not on your phone anymore?
No, I erased the darn thing 'cause I didn't think nothing of it. You know, I don't. Every day I go out and clear my messages, you know, the next morning starting over. But there was something there, but I've been trying to think what the word was. And then she said, as soon as I get settled in, I'll give you a call. And then blank. I mean, nothing. I've tried to leave a message. I left her a couple of messages after that. For a while, the phone would take messages. And I said, Lisa, I'm worried about you. Please give me a call. You know I love you. I even sent her a little clip art, you know, because that's where we kidded it.
Right.
I sent that to her. Nothing. So I don't know how many messages I left her to call me. And then after a while, nothing.
If Lissa Spence had disappeared, how and why was she sending text messages to Richard Moore? And is there anybody else getting them? Felonious, Florida is brought to you by Simply Safe Home Security. Simply Safe is a fantastic security system providing great protection for your home. But before Simply Safe, home security companies were getting away with a lot. They were overcharging for outdated, complicated systems and trapping people in pricey contracts. That changed 10 years ago when an electrical engineer named Chad Lawrence had a few friends who were burglarized. They wanted security, but there weren't any good options. So Chad started Simply Safe. He got rid of the hidden fees and contracts. He made Simply Safe intuitive and easy to use. He just wanted a security company that treated people right. Now, Simply Safe is the top choice security system of CNET, PCMag, and Wirecutter. But most importantly, over 2 million people trust it to keep them safe. All because Chad wanted to help his friends who were burglarized. Go to simplysafe.com/Florida to get yours today. That's simplysafe.com/Florida. Lissa Spence grew up just outside the small city of Arima in Trinidad. A census estimate puts population there at about 30,000. English is the official language. Tradition has endured on this island. Generations live close to one another, sometimes even in the same house. Trinidad is one of the most distant Caribbean islands, but is still a popular destination for the huge cruise ships that sail out of Florida. The ships dock in a downtown that features skyscrapers, bustling arcade malls, a financial center, and patience-testing rush-hour traffic. But Arima is in the middle of the island, far from the tourist and business centers. Some families still live in basic wooden huts. Most of the homes there are small buildings, 2 or 3 stories. They're painted with bright Caribbean colors, usually with clay tiles for roofs. Lissa was raised there, a middle child with 5 brothers and sisters. They all lived in a house with their mom and dad. Some of the kids had to share the same bed. Growing up, Lissa enjoyed going to the beach, and she loved being with her mom and her family. Just like other families on the island, hers was very tight-knit. As soon as she finished high school, she went right to work to earn money. By the 1990s, Lissa was living in a housing development a few minutes outside of Arima. She's 5'6", brown eyes, long black hair. She had her daughter Serlene when she was young, just 17. Serlene's father was Avril Absalom's brother. Lissa met Avril for the first time around 1994.
Lissa's daughter, Serlene, is my niece. She's my brother's daughter. Yes, so my brother and Lissa were together for a long time. I was certainly looking forward to meeting her because my niece, she was so gorgeous, such a pretty baby. And I knew of my brother's relationship with her. And again, when I met her, she was very warm, very nice girl. I thought she was a very nice girl.
But Lissa's relationship with Avril's brother eventually ended. A relationship with another man led to Lissa's son, 5 years after Serlene. It was sometime many years later when Lissa met the man who would eventually lead her to Florida. Lissa met Paul Edwards in Trinidad, though it's not clear exactly when. Paul had 3 kids from prior relationships with 2 other women. He was a corrections officer who worked in Trinidad's prison system. Some described him as friendly and courteous. He was 8 years older than Lissa. Lissa and Paul grew closer and eventually moved into an apartment together, along with Lissa's daughter and son. They lived happily at first, but their relationship started getting more tense over the years. Paul and Lissa had started to fight often. The fights would sometimes get physical.
She lived with him in Trinidad. He abused her there. And like with all abused women, he would come back and he would apologize and he would say, never do this again. He would bring gifts and then she would go right back with him. And so that happened for quite a while.
The couple would break up, then get back together. It happened several times. But finally, their rocky relationship reached an end. They split up and their lives went down different paths. Lissa landed a well-paying job and was supporting her kids. Paul reunited with the mother of 2 of his children, and the 2 packed up and moved from Trinidad to Florida in 2003. The couple's reunion, however, would be short-lived. Despite moving to the U.S. together, Paul and the other woman argued and split up just 6 months later. Soon, Paul turned his attention back to Lissa. He wanted to try again. This time would be different. He started calling Lissa from Florida and urged her to come join him. There are so many opportunities, he'd tell her. She'd be happy here. One day, Lissa finally agreed. She packed her bags, left her kids in the care of her mother and other family, and headed to the Sunshine State.
She came up to Florida for like a mini visit 1 year, and then the next year she fully moved to Florida. But she, I think, weighed the decision: should she stay in Trinidad or should she come, to somehow, make a better life for her children? So she came up here. She was promised, as far as I know, many things. You would move to America, you can work, your children could come live with you. And it seems to me that that's what she was promised, and she came, and she made a decision to leave. She certainly had a good job in Trinidad, and she earned, a decent salary down there. But, she was encouraged to come up here, just so she'll have a better life for her kids. I think that was also part of the promise, the package of, Paul gave to her, that if she would come to America, her kids would eventually be able to join her. They would get married, and then everything would be taken care of. So that's what she was hoping for.
Once in Florida, Lissa moved into Paul's apartment in Miramar. It was in a multifamily building on Venetian Street. Apartment B was a tiny unit. You walk into the front door and straight into the living room. The small kitchen is just footsteps away. There's a closet along a hallway, which leads to the only bedroom and bathroom. You can walk around the entire place in seconds. It didn't matter. Lissa and Paul didn't get many visitors. The apartment is right behind the strip mall where Lissa would soon land work at the Quick Stop and beauty supply store. It took her less than a minute to walk to the shops.
It was important to her to earn her own money And she, she didn't mind working hard for it, extra hours and things like that.
Lissa and Paul lived out their daily lives in that little apartment. It's where they were living the day Lissa vanished. Police officers knocked on the door of apartment B shortly after Lissa went missing. Paul was home and let them in. Danny Smith has been on the Miramar police force since 1997. He began doing road patrol when he joined the department, but moved up to working homicide investigations within a few years. At the time that Paul Edwards was letting officers into his apartment, Detective Smith hadn't yet been assigned to the investigation. It's just a missing persons case.
Well, it actually went to our missing persons unit initially. There was the welfare check that was called in, and two of our missing persons detectives went to her residence. Obviously, that's the first place you're going to check, knock on the door, and they made contact with Paul Edwards.
It didn't take long for officers to see problems with Paul's story. Things weren't adding up. They returned 2 days later with more questions. He keeps telling police that Lissa broke up with him and moved out.
I spoke with Paul. They got a weird vibe from him. They got with us. When I say us, I mean the homicide unit, and said, hey, this is what we have. What do you guys think? And as soon as we heard the story and I guess some of his odd behavior, some of his odd answers to questions that he gave the missing persons detectives, we immediately took it over.
Both times, Paul let the officers inspect the apartment. They checked to see if Lissa left any belongings behind, or maybe a forwarding address, any clue that could reveal where she went.
I think a lot of it was intuition. There was a couple of his answers to where she is was, I don't know. She broke up with me and she just picked up and left. Really? Do you know where she went? How did she get her stuff out of here? She doesn't have a car. And his answers were, I have no idea. She just got up and left.
Lissa never needed a car in Florida. Work was right around the corner.
He was slightly nervous, which is by itself is what it is. People were nervous talking with the police.
But Paul's behavior and his statements were making police suspicious. Maybe this was more than a simple disappearance. So Homicide Detective Smith took over the investigation. It's about a week after Lissa vanished, and Detective Smith and other investigators decide they need more answers from Paul Edwards. They find him at his mother's home, just 1.5 miles from his apartment. He agrees to go back to the police station for questioning. It's there police notice Paul has some injuries that they want him to explain. They take photographs of a cut on his left forearm and another on the inside of his right pinky finger.
We actually call him in, we bring him in, and immediately red flags come up. He has cuts on his hands that look like they are maybe a couple days old. They're not completely scabbed over. However, you could tell that they're recent.
Paul has an explanation for the cuts, but it only raises more questions. He tells police that he and Lissa have argued and fought in the past. About a week before she disappeared, Lissa threatened him with a knife, he says. He was protecting himself and was cut when he tried to grab the knife away from Lissa. And he says they fought again the night Lissa had last been seen.
He tells us a story that they got in an argument and she decides to leave.
According to Paul, Lissa told him that she was breaking up with him and leaving that night. He said he decided to give her some time to gather her belongings. He left the apartment and drove around his neighborhood for an hour in a rental car. But by the time he returned home, Lissa was gone. So were her things.
He has no idea how she moved it. She doesn't have a vehicle. And we thought that was kind of odd because if someone's going to leave for the rest of their lives, they're probably going to call somebody and ask for some help moving. And at the same time, it's probably going to take a little bit more than an hour.
Paul tells Detective Smith he hasn't seen or heard from Lissa since. Police are dubious of Paul's story, and they're starting to piece together a dark picture of his relationship with Lissa. Paul admitted to them they had fought, and that their fights had been physical. And as they talk to other people in Lissa's life, the picture becomes more clear.
As we started working our investigation, Lissa's close friends were coming forward and saying that he has been abusive physically, verbally, and they know of this information. However, it was never told to the police.
Her friends had many stories about violence. Lissa's friend from the Quick Stop, Richard Moore, was one of them. Richard was friends with the store's owner and was there a lot. He liked helping out the workers. They even gave him a nickname, Daddy. He's not sure where Daddy came from, but it stuck. He told Officer St. Fort that Paul was abusive and that Lissa was trying to find a way out of the relationship.
But she was very unhappy with the guy she's living with.
You know his name?
Paul.
Okay.
And on here, I guess, a couple months. Time, yeah, I'm not good at time, but he was slapping her around. And then, she kept telling me she got to get out of this mess and stuff. And she was asking my opinion, and I told her, look, once they start that, they never stop.
And Richard wasn't the only person to describe Lissa's situation in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. Another person recounted a past incident that was more chilling.
There was one friend in particular that Lissa called and met with him one time. He lives in the area. She had said that she was sleeping and woke up to Paul standing over her, and he had a telephone cord wrapped around her throat. And he wasn't really putting a whole lot of pressure, but enough to where it woke her up. And Lissa didn't know why Paul was upset, but she did know that she woke up to a cord around her neck, and he made it clear to her that she needs to do what he says, or else he's going to use this cord on her.
By October of 2009, Lissa had had enough of the abuse. She planned to end it with Paul. She was going to leave, she told friends, but she just needed the right time. She wanted to leave when Paul wasn't around.
She said she had her one little bag packed that she's going to take off the first chance she got.
But it was difficult to find the right time. Paul kept calling in sick from work. So he was home a lot, and she didn't want to try to leave while he was there. And when Paul wasn't working, he was coming into the Quick Stop more often, likely to check on Lissa. Richard Moore recalled seeing him.
He kept coming to the store early in the morning and started drinking. I never noticed him drink before, but he started drinking.
What time? Like how early?
Oh, I mean, like in the morning hour, like, say 9, 10, I call that early, but, for drinking.
Right.
Was Lissa afraid of Paul? That key question comes up while Lissa's boss, Mohammed, is describing Paul and Lissa to police.
So did she ever describe, she never told you that she was in fear of him or scared?
She's scared of him. She told me.
She told you that?
Yeah.
But there was something else going on in Lissa's life that police were about to discover. There was another man. Hi, this is Emma Kate Austin. Audiobooks motivate us, inspire us, even bring us closer together. And there's no better place to listen than Audible. Audible has the largest selection of audiobooks on the planet. And now, with Audible Originals, the selection has gotten even more custom with content made just for members. Every month, Audible members get 1 credit for any audiobook they choose, plus 2 Audible Originals from a changing selection that they can't get anywhere else. You're listening to our show because you love true crime. Audible has a new book you might like straight out of Florida. Bob Brink's Murder in Palm Beach is the story of a shocking 1976 murder that made headlines for 15 years. And Audible has James Patterson's brand new book, Ambush. Now Audible has a special offer for listeners of Felonious, Florida. Get your first audiobook free and choose 2 titles from a curated list of Audible originals when you try Audible for 30 days. Just visit audible.com/Florida or text Florida to 500-500. With Audible, your books are yours to keep. Go back and re-listen anytime, even if you cancel your membership. Don't like your audiobook? Exchange it, no questions asked. So get your free audiobook today by going to audible.com/Florida. That's AUDIBLE.com/Florida. Or by texting Florida to 500-500. Audible. You can do it with audiobooks. Lissa Spence had a secret she was keeping from most people. A man had started visiting the store in recent months before she disappeared. His name was Shaquin Lopez, and he and Lissa became friends. That friendship became romantic. Shaquin lived less than a mile from the Quick Stop, in a 3-bedroom house east of the North Perry Airport, in the city of Pembroke Pines. The home doubled with Shaquin behind Paul's back, but police learned something else. Richard said he saw Shaquin in the Quick Stop the night that Lissa disappeared. Paul told police that Lissa said she was going to leave him that night. Was she planning to run away with him? Officer St. Fort asked Richard Moore if that was a possibility.
She was pretty happy because he was even, her boyfriend, a new boyfriend, was even in that day. I don't know what time he was in there, but I want to say like, time is maybe around 7, maybe a little earlier, but he was in.
So did they discuss any plans, or did you?
Oh, I didn't get in.
Anything?
They go talk. I don't get in their business. She just.
Did she tell you she had any plans, or?
Yeah, she told me she was leaving, and she was going with that guy.
She told you that night?
Been telling me, right along for the last couple of weeks,
But did she tell you, well, it's the night I'm leaving, or?
No, she didn't tell me night to night.
When investigators found Shaquin, he admitted that he and Lissa were involved. Very involved. He said the two were planning to start a new life together. They even talked about getting married. Police needed to know more about their secret relationship and the details about the night Lissa vanished. Where was he that night? Shaquin tells them he talked to Lissa on the phone at 10:40. He was at a Jamaican restaurant a few miles from home with a friend named Omar. Omar drove them around town after leaving the restaurant and eventually took Shaquin home. He got there around 11 and was there for the rest of the night. He told police that he hadn't run away with Lissa. Although Shaquin Lopez had claimed that he didn't help Lissa to leave Paul Edwards that night, he did tell police that she had wanted to leave. Shaquin said that Lissa told him Paul was abusing her, and that Wednesday night she would, once and for all, leave him. Shaquin said he was afraid for her safety if she returned to the apartment and had to confront Paul. Don't go back at all, he warned. Leave your belongings and just go. But Lissa insisted that she needed her things, especially her passport, so she went home. When Lissa went missing, Shaquin tried reaching her on her cell phone for days. Richard Moore recalls Shaquin and Lissa's boss, Muhammad Awad, showing up at his home. Both of them were worried about Lissa.
And I didn't even know they was planning on getting married till I spoke to him the night after she was supposed to call him. He was worried sick too when he came here with Muhammad to the house. I said nothing, and I had a text message at that time. I said, this is all I know about it, So I tried calling her right then. And right then, Muhammad and everybody said, well, maybe we got to call the police. I said, well, I don't think they're going to do anything because she's an adult on the first day. I said, I don't think the police officers will do anything on the first day, her being an adult. I said, if it was a kid, it might be a different story. But I said, something's wrong. So she was in such a good mood Wednesday night,
Richard had begun to think back on the text message he got from Lissa's phone the day after she disappeared. Something seemed off about it. For one thing, it was the first time she had ever texted him. She preferred talking on the phone to sending texts. Muhammad Awad agreed. Maybe it wasn't even Lissa who was sending the text. It turned out Richard wasn't the only one who had started getting mysterious texts from Lissa's phone. Dexter Vincent was another. He's Lissa's brother. Dexter moved to the U.S. years before Lissa did, back in the 1990s. He's the second oldest of the 6 siblings. Lissa is the third, right after him. He was living in Philadelphia in 2009. Dexter and Lissa spoke over the phone a lot, sometimes every day. Dexter had been leaving voicemails for his sister since she vanished on October 7th. She never called back. Instead, he started getting a string of texts from Lissa's phone. Some were so long that they were broken up into several texts, for his help in reassuring her family. A text at 8:33 that night says, "Call Mummy or Serlene for me. Serlene is trying to get on to me when I answer call cut off. Tell them I will call them or text them." The next night, October 10th, more texts come in. 7:53 p.m. What's up? I am just trying to readjust myself. Text Serlene and told her to tell Mommy I moved. I will text when I come out of the shower. 9 p.m. I am in Jacksonville. I don't really know place. I will be in Miami next week. I took a rest from the job. Here's reporter Juan Ortega explaining how Lissa's brother handled the texts.
He's seeing these text messages that are coming supposedly from Lissa, and it seems pretty early on that he gets onto the idea that it's not Lissa. It just seems so strange for them to be from Lissa. And he decides to try to outsmart this person, because if it's not Lissa, then who is it? And the best he comes up with, he thinks back to how maybe he should ask something that no one else would know except for Lissa. And he thinks back to their childhood when they were growing up in Trinidad. He remembers how Lissa had childhood friends, and one of the childhood friends who lived nearby was a girl named Allison. And Allison had several siblings. So the question that he decides to present to this person on the other end, he asks, what is the name of Allison's brother? And he makes it even more specific. He says, not just any sibling, he wants to know the name of Allison's younger brother. And to him, it seems like this works, because the person on the other end of the line who'd been sending all these text messages all this time suddenly doesn't write back. So he sees this as validation that it's not Lissa.
Fed up, Dexter called Paul and confronted him over the phone. What happened to Lissa? He demanded. Paul responded, it wasn't supposed to be like this. And he started to cry. Dexter had enough and hung up the phone. To Dexter, the text didn't sound like Lissa, and police weren't buying it either. One of the texts that Dexter had gotten from his sister's phone was at 9 a.m. on October 10th. She said she was in Jacksonville, but records showed that her cell phone was being read by a tower in Sunny Isles near Miami. That's 300 miles away from Jacksonville. There were also mysterious phone calls. The last known call that Lissa was on happened October 7th. But there were 3 outbound calls made from Lissa's phone on October 8th and 9th, after she had gone missing. All of them were to Shaquin Lopez, the man Lissa had a secret relationship with. The calls each lasted 0 seconds. They were immediate hang-ups. Police dug deeper into phone records, and not just Lissa's. One of the last text messages that Dexter Vincent got from his sister was relayed from a tower in Sunny Isles. The phone records showed that Paul Edwards' phone was also hitting off towers in the same area. In fact, Paul's phone never seemed to be far from Lissa's. There was evidence that Paul Edwards wasn't telling police everything he knew. And then came evidence that something violent had taken place. Officers had already looked around Lissa and Paul's apartment several times, but they wanted a closer look. They returned again, armed with a search warrant, and began a forensic examination of the apartment, CSI style. This time, they discovered small traces of blood. Detective Danny Smith describes how they made the discovery.
We search that residence. We find, over the course of the execution of that warrant, we find some blood evidence, not a great deal of blood evidence, but we do find some blood evidence in the bathroom.
When you walk into Paul and Lissa's cramped bathroom, the toilet is on the right, just inches from the wooden door. There's a toilet seat with a seafoam green fabric seat cover and a matching bath rug on the white tiled floor. To the back of the toilet is a checkered flower pot with light pink carnations and a bottle of orange hand soap. The bathtub is light blue, and there's a green bottle of cucumber melon baby wash in one corner. And wedged between the tub and toilet is the bathroom sink, on a deteriorated white vanity cabinet. The formica from the vanity is peeling off, showing the wood underneath. There, on that vanity, spots of blood grab the attention of detectives.
And to get technical, under the vanity, there was some directionality with that blood, meaning a normal person would expect that you're going to find some blood in someone's home because people cut themselves. It's normal. But this particular piece of blood evidence had directionality going from down to up underneath the vanity. That's normally not a place that you would bleed if you cut yourself.
More traces of blood are found on the bathroom's door frame and on the backsplash tiles in the bathtub. Investigators collect the blood samples for testing. They need to know, are these drops of blood evidence of a crime? They have